let me do sort of a little, permit me a little bookend thing here with this. It was a couple records ago I wrote an album called Citation. Yeah. And shit, there we are. I rented this apartment. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been there for a while, and I rented this apartment down near the university and just put a table and a chair and a typewriter and a guitar, and would go in there every day and write. And before I would write, I'd always read the paper and like do the cryptogram and pretend I was breaking German code and do the crossword puzzle and shit like that, you know. And as you notice, that the World War II generation, people are dying off really so fast they don't know where they're going to put them all, to tell you the truth. You've heard that, but I can't wait for the son of bitches to get gone. But anyway, my dad was one of them. And my neighbor Vern is one of them too. And one thing I noticed in the Knoxville paper was that, I mean, all these Navy veterans, like what in the world were all these hillbillies thinking joining the Navy? Or are they just dumb enough that they got forced into the Navy? I do not know which. But Vern, he was in World War II. He was in the Navy. He's my neighbor. Retired machinist, 50 years at Roman Haas there in Tennessee, which is a place that our grandchildren will be cleaning up with the shit they're leaving there in the ground. But anyway, Vern and I, we love college football. That's why we get along good as neighbors. So, I don't know where this is going. So anyway, one day, I had... oh, I know what it was. I love college football, and I had a weekend off. And it was this fall, and my wife was out of town with her horse friends. She's got a horse, that goddamn horse. Honey, I need a new car. No, you need to ride that horse to work is what you need to do. So she was gone for the weekend, and we'd gotten a new door down the basement, so I decided I'd do a little chores around the house and put my TV outside and watch football all friggin' day long. And I used to paint. When I got out of college, I worked for a real painter, and so I knew I had like my old painter pants, and I went and got some supplies like cheap vodka and shit like that. Was ready to go, and the cable wasn't working, so I went over to Vern next door and said, "Hey Vern, is your cable out?" He's like, "Yeah, I do a pretty good Vern. You don't know Vern, but I do a good Vern." And he's like, "Yeah, it's out." And I was like, "Well, you know that game comes on. Tennessee plays Auburn, I think 7 o'clock that night, and I want to watch football. We need to." So I called the cable company and went back and drank my cheap vodka and painted on the door and shit. Proceeded with my day. And then the cable didn't come on again, so I called the cable company again, and they said, I was like, "Look, this whole hill, we live on this hill, Rocky Hill, this area of Knoxville where we live." I was like, "This whole hill is full of just old cranky people that will be down there with pitchforks outside your building if you don't get this goddamn cable working. Get this game on." You know, it's religion in the Southeast. There's football. And the guy was like, "Well, you need to really what you need to do is go get everybody who has their cables out to call in, because the more calls we get, the quicker we'll send a truck." So I like, fine, democracy in action. So I'm going up and down the street and I'm knocking on the doors and like, "Hey, you need to call the cable company and tell them that your cable's out so we can watch this goddamn game." So I go back to paint. Anyway, I see Vern later stepping out on his porch having his Miller Lite like he does every afternoon about 5 o'clock. And I was like, "Vern, did you call the cable company?" He's like, "I did, but damn, that menu was so long I just never could get through it." And I was like, "Vern, that's the problem with your generation, is you have no stick-to-itiveness." Jim Moffitt was the kind of man who would not let you down. He said he was a steady boy, but he kept the bottle around. And he got the call like everyone in 1942. A Navy bunk and mechanics pay and guaranteed hot food. The only road he'd ever known, the only road was gravel, clay, and cotton bolls. The only road he'd ever known, the only road he'd ever known was gravel, clay, and cotton bolls. Elizabeth, this sweet young thing, was born with a broken heart. She talked of it, but you could tell she never traveled far. She wrote poor Jimmy every day, and in the window hung a star. And read the paper for his name, and always crossed her heart. The only road he'd ever known, the only road was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. The only road he'd ever known, the only road he'd ever known was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. Well, the Leyte Gulf in 44 was no place for a boy raised on muddy water where you could always see shore. And the Jap torpedo came at night and hit the engine room, and the boys down there just held their breaths and prayed that someone knew. The only road they'd ever known, the only road was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. The only road they'd ever known, the only road they'd ever known was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. Elizabeth lay down that night and could not catch her breath. She dreamed she saw poor Jimmy's face, wide-eyed and scared to death. And she reached a hand out in the dark as he took his last gasp. And together and forever they'll be walking hand in hand, the only road they'd ever known. The only road was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. The only road they'd ever known, the only road they'd ever known was gravel, clay, and cotton balls. That was a really fucking downer there, wasn't it?